King Kong was originally released in 1933 to critical response. It took a bunch of early animation techniques, such as stop motion, to create a giant beast named Kong. The film managed to gain a large cult following, still present to this day. The original release of King Kong in 1933 was huge. It established one of the most well-known movie icons, and this meant his character appeared in many real-life scenarios, such as in rides or video games. The film itself was huge for the time, and was re-released twice. In total, the film made a profit of £287 million. This was achieved by strong reviews in the New York Times, but however, Nazi Germany banned the film. It's also from VHS sales and selling it to public networks such as ABC, American televisions. The original release of King Kong in 1933 was a massive thing for the time. I mean, a lot of films that Willis O'Brien from the stop motion animator behind King Kong, and he was responsible for a project before called The Lost World, which was also, you know, thanked and remembered really for its great special effects and just using the use of stop motion. King Kong, in Peter Jackson's King Kong, was released in 2005. Originally, the studio wanted to release a King Kong film along with Peter Jackson, but Paramount felt the market changed around that point due to the release of the Godzilla movie. So it's actually after Peter Jackson directed all the three Lord of the Rings films, he began working on King Kong, which something he wanted to do for years, is what originally got him into film. If we examine both profits, we see in total the 1933 version arguably smaller budget, but the production quality and as well as the time, that money would have got them a lot more than say it would now. The 2005 version, the reason its profit was so big was the use of CG. It was one of the most, CG in that film was one of the most, not overused things, but most used things about it, as in not many scenes were set in real sets, instead they were just on green screens and backgrounds. As you can see, King Kong basically in 1933 featured one of the biggest sets that have ever been built. Kong himself was 18 inches tall, and eventually he was built 24 inches for the scenes in New York City, which of course is the Empire State Building scene, and just generally Kong making chaos. Willis O'Brien used stop motion to animate Kong throughout the movie. He uses jointed dolls and moved them step by step to create the illusion of Kong moving. Now, his process would have taken a lot of time, fortunately, where Willis had been experienced this kind of animation before and he was very talented at it. He managed to be able to get probably about 20 seconds of usable footage a day. Basically, stop motion was a technique not really used after the 50s. It kind of went out. And computer animation became a big thing. So Peter Jackson, he obviously opted to use CG for a lot of the scenes, as we mentioned earlier. But Kong himself was actually Kong himself used Andy Serkin, who was placed in a motion suit, which means that all his movements were captured on a computer and then relayed back to create a character of some sort that would copy his movements. He actually went out to Africa and studied apes for around a week just to get the idea of how they feel, and he felt this changed the film completely, and that's why it also won a lot of awards. King Kong ended up grossing $9.7 million in one weekend, which was it's not the best release, but quite noticeable. And basically with DVD sales and obviously selling the film to TV networks like ITV, for example, they bought it. It got $218 million in total gross. And then eventually they managed to get $10 million more just from Blu-ray re-releases, HD DVDs when they were still around. The impact on culture was obviously quite significant. Kong has been parodied in many different films, like The Simpsons movie. He actually has a short appearance in the background, if you haven't noticed. Furthermore, after The Simpsons, he was in things like Futurama, for example, and the infamous Empire State Building scene has been copied by many as it's just a well-known cult figure in the film community. If we examine both the stars, we see that basically Naomi Watts, this was her first big role in the film. Jackson didn't want anyone else for the role. He just wanted her. He wouldn't have made the film without her, he said. That's how strongly he felt he wanted her in the movie. And she obviously played a great part and was highly involved with the amount of gross they got during and after the release of Kong. If we examine Faye White, obviously she was very close to Paramount Pictures before. This meant that they knew how good of an actress she was, and they chose her to star in the movie. And everyone managed to say that she really did fit the role. Originally, she was meant to appear in a 2005 remake, but sadly died before the film was released. Carl Denham, Jack Black had always wanted to be in a Peter Jackson movie, so he decided to approach Jackson for the role in King Kong. From there, he basically accepted the role. He didn't, in a sense, he wanted to work with him and had been sent interviews, but he never really met Peter Jackson. But Peter Jackson obviously found out about this, as Jack Black's quite big in the music community, and that's one of the primary reasons he offered him the role. Robert Armstrong was basically chosen because he felt like he resembled a real-life adventurer, and at the time jungle movies were a huge thing, so they thought, with Robert Armstrong appearing in many so-called jungle movies, that this would be a great appearance for him to be in. King Kong was censored because of its violence. Obviously in a film like quite violent and on a tropical island, a lot of people died in that film, hence when the re-release was brought out, they decided to censor some of the footage. And this meant one of the most infamous scenes, called the Spider Pit scene, was censored, and that film was originally lost. Now Jackson had remade a similar scene in the using stop motion animation and a 35mm camera, but unfortunately it was a good scene, like it was good, but no one has ever found the footage of the true real Spider Pit scene. If we look, we see Jackson's studio release King Kong. Basically what he did is he worked very closely with Universal, and what they did is they gave him the money, the studio money, Wingnut Films, which has worked on other films like Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, so obviously they're very experienced in what they do. Jackson obviously wanted to direct this film for a long time, so he felt his studio was the best way to do it. With Paramount support, they managed to release the film. The original 1933 film was released by RKO. Now this company eventually went bust, and they lost out on, they sold some of the rights to their films, but eventually they just went bust and the company was just liquidated and it just went.